way down to come to the front table to talk to this. There is a revision in a couple of the recommendations that you'll see on your screen, largely necessitated by the two people nominated in the original recommendation from the Independent Maori Statutory Board, Leanne and David, not being available. So, who's going to take the lead on this?
Good morning.
Elizabeth.
Yes. This report would usually come to the Regulatory Committee. It's coming to the governing body because in last term we reported to the Regional Strategy and Policy Committee suggesting a process for selection of the new District Licensing Committee. And that committee asked that the incoming governing body considered the process and the timeline for District Licensing Committee recruitment. This report also asks the governing body to consider and agree the process for Resource Management Commissioner recruitment because both sets of contracts expire at the same time, and I'm proposing that the same process be used. There have been a couple of updates since this agenda went to print, hence the proposed alterations of the recommendations, and I'll just briefly go through those if I may. The first is a minor error was identified where on page 97, which was the recommendations, did not match the page 101 in terms of the list of staff who are recommended to be on the DLC selection panel. So there is a recommendation to change that, remove Executive Officer Operations and replace with Manager Public Law. And secondly, I've received notice from the Independent Māori Statutory Board that we are still awaiting confirmation of names for the District Licensing Committee recruitment panel. So I've removed Leanne Ngamane and David Taipiri from recommendation B as a result of that, and we're yet to confirm with the Independent Māori Statutory Board those members.
Do you want to touch on E and F as well, which
Yes.
relate to local board members and the importance on the selection panel for local board members where there is not a conflict of interest, not to have a staff member making a decision about a local board member, as I take it?
That's correct. Question was raised about whether local board members can apply to be on the new District Licensing Committee. We currently do have local board members who are part of our existing committee, and the answer is yes, they may. However, the delegation in the previous term from the governing body for local boards to object to our coal licences places local boards in conflict if they hear applications for premises in their area. The practice that we have been using to mitigate that conflict is that local board members who are on the District Licensing Committee do not sit on hearings within their own area, only adjacent or areas or other parts of Auckland. And that's the practice that we would continue if local board members were to be successful in their applications for the new committee. So that raises the question about then how the selection panel works. It's not appropriate for staff to be interviewing elected members, and so what we're proposing is that the interview panel, if there is an interview for a District Licensing Committee member that's a local board member, we would have a DLC chairperson from another territorial authority and an Independent Māori Statutory Board member and a councillor. Staff would attend only in an advisory capacity for those interviews. And that's where I've recommended E and F to explain those 2 points.
Thank you very much. Any further comments that you'd like to add? Otherwise, open it up to... sorry, I'll formally move the new recommendations. Have I a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor has seconded. Open it up for questions first. Those of you who have been on the governing body before will be fully familiar with this. There may be, like Councillor Mike Lee.
It's a small point, but it relates to the previous item, really. The Local Government Auckland Council Act of 2009 and 2010 included a independent Maori statutory board to be represented on the committees of the council. I note that in these particular delegated roles, there seems to be an equal number, and I just wondered, should not the public expect that there be more elected members on these sorts of roles, rather than direct equality with the members of the Independent Maori Statutory Board? I'm just wondering, are we creating a precedent for co-governance here?
Would you like to comment on that? I understand it's not a precedent and that is the status quo in regard to this particular body. Okay, thank you. Any further questions? John Watson.
Are these questions going to the Resource Management
Yes,
Commissioners?
yeah, we're dealing with both together.
Yeah, okay. My question just goes to the graph showing the distribution by expertise in respect of the Resource Management Commissioner pool. And I'm just really seeking a little bit of clarification in regards of the political community expertise. What sort of background is emerging in terms of those people? In the first instance, does everyone have academic qualifications in terms of planning, or do we have people a variance in terms of how people are qualified?
Through you, Your Worship, in response to your first question about political community, that tends to be those people who were formerly elected members. And in terms of qualifications, those in the planning category are absolutely qualified as planners, and many of the other selection panel, the other commissioners also do have planning expertise. However, they'll have the qualifications relating to their specific area of expertise. Okay,
so are they university qualifications, or are they like resource? Well, I can see Councillor Cooper making an unusual expression on her face here, but I'm trying to just determine, given the importance of the work that these people do, I'm just trying to seek a little reassurance as in terms of their qualifications, formal or otherwise. So do they have formal academic qualifications?
Yes, they do.
Okay. In terms of identifying these people, are they available on some list somewhere that people can see who they actually are?
Yes, I can make that list available to you if you wish.
Okay, but to this point, is there a list of them that's on the website or something that people can see?
The District Licensing Committee members are on the website. The Resource Management Commissioners are not on the website, but I am happy to provide that list.
Right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Linda Cooper.
Just to clarify, Mr Chairman, members of the committee have access to that, and Councillor Watson is a member of that committee, so we've been given those lists.
I was thinking more of the
they come to
members of
meeting.
the public, actually, Councillor Cooper, not so much myself.
So are these, I mean, it's quite important for those of us that might receive the lists, are they available to the public? If they're existing commissioners, I'm sure they will be.
They are available.
They are available.
Yes.
That's good. Thank you. Councillor Casey.
It's just a question through ignorance. How, once these people are contracted, do we review their performance?
Yes, we do. We have been going through a process of developing and finalising a performance management framework for independent commissioners. At the moment, performance is mostly managed through the service level agreements and the contracts that we hold with them. And we're working actually to develop an implementation of the performance framework that works for us. And that's work that we are conducting in the next 6 months or so.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this is one of the areas, one of the most difficult areas for us, because we obviously can't, we can judge the performance on the basis of the number of appeals they would have had against their decisions, or when we have complaints from the public. But it's because the independent commissioner finding that right balance is actually quite difficult. So the recruitment process is really important to make sure that we get high quality people that minimizes the risk that it does happen.
Well, that framework that you mentioned, does that come to us, or is that something internal?
I can't recall offhand. I'd need to go back and look to that, whether we took it to the former hearings committee. I'll need to just review my records for that.
Right, I have no other questions, but it's open for comment. Another question, Councillor
Sorry, just to follow
Cashmore.
on from Councillor Casey's question, which is the one I had as well. So of the appeals that go through, is that compared to the number of applications to go before DLC, is it a high percentage, a low percentage? Is it 25? Do you actually have the number of cases that are appealed?
Don't have the exact number of cases that are appealed. Appeals don't necessarily reflect the quality of decisions, so it's hard for us to say that if a decision is appealed, then it was not a correct decision or it wasn't done well. So I can't really comment further on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. We're now open for any comments that people want to make. I have nobody listed yet, so I can move to taking the vote on it if there are no comments. So it's been moved and seconded. Looking at the screen and the amended original recommendation, all those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, no. Carried. Right, item number 15, which I'm sure will engender some interest.